Chapter 12. The Ghosts of the Past. Flashbacks of a once perfect life. The echoes of the past became ghosts, haunting Sebastian at every turn. Even as he stood in the present, his mind would often drift back to moments he had shared with Alice. Their life together had been almost perfect, or so it had seemed. They had traveled the world, attending lavish parties, sailing along the Mediterranean, exploring the vibrant streets of countries. Each memory was a snapshot of a life filled with love, laughter, and endless possibilities. One memory in particular clung to him like a shadow was the last conversation he had with Alice. She had been so excited, her eyes sparkling with mischief as she teased him about a surprise she was planning for their anniversary. They had planned to celebrate the milestone with a small gathering of close friends, but Alice had insisted on getting him a special gift, something that would remind him of their journey together. "I'll be back soon, my love," she had said, leaning in to kiss him softly. "Don't peek at the surprise." He had laughed, playfully promising not to ruin it, unaware that it would be the last time he would see her alive. The memory of that kiss, the sound of her laughter, the warmth of her touch, it all haunted him now, as he found himself drawn to another woman. The guilt was suffocating. It was a constant reminder that he was betraying the memory of the woman he had loved so deeply. Lisa, too, was haunted by her own past. As her relationship with Sebastian deepened, so too did her insecurities. She had always prided herself on being independent, on overcoming all obstacles that life had thrown her way, on not needing anyone to validate her worth. But with Sebastian, everything was different. She could not shake the feeling that she was stepping into someone else's shoes, that she was nothing more than a replacement for the woman he had lost. Late at nights, after her son was asleep and the world was quiet, Lisa would lie awake, her mind racing with doubts. She remembered the stories Sebastian had told her about Alice, their life together, the love they had shared. How could she ever compare to that? How could she ever be enough for a man who had already experienced a love so profound? The fear of being inadequate weighed heavily on her, making her question every moment they spent together. She was just a dancer, a woman who had clawed her way out of poverty and despair. Sebastian was a billionaire, a man who had seen and done it all. What could she possibly offer him that he did not already have? Lisa's mind raced with thoughts that only despaired her. Nothing seemed to calm the turmoil inside her. She had always prided herself on being strong, on overcoming the obstacles that life had thrown her way. But this was different. Sebastian was everything she had never expected to find. He was kind, thoughtful, and despite the walls he had built around himself, he had shown her a vulnerability that touched her deeply. But as much as her heart yearned for him, there was a nagging fear that she could not shake. The fear of what her parents would think. The age gap between them was undeniable. Sebastian was older than her parents, a man who had lived a full life long before she had even been born. How would they react if they knew? Would they see it as another disappointment, another failure on her part to live up to their expectations? She hadn't seen them in years, not since they had turned her away when she needed them most. They had never met their grandson, never witnessed the struggles she had faced to build a life for herself and her child. Yet, despite everything, their judgment still lingered over her like a dark cloud. She imagined their faces, the looks of disapproval, the harsh words that would no doubt follow. The thought made her heart ache, and for a moment, she was tempted to walk away from Sebastian, to choose the path of least resistance. But as she sat there, grappling with her emotions, something inside her began to shift. Why was she still allowing them to dictate her life? Why was she still seeking their approval after everything that had happened? She had survived without them, had raised her son without their support, and had fought for every opportunity that had come her way. She was no longer the scared, naive girl they had once known. She was a woman who had built her life on her terms, and it was time she started living for herself. Lisa took a deep breath, feeling a sense of clarity wash over her. The fear was still there, but it was no longer the dominant force in her mind. She realized that her parents' acceptance, or lack thereof, would not change her decision. She was in control of her life, and she would not let anyone else dictate how she should live it. Yes, the age gap was significant, and yes, it might raise some eyebrows. But what truly mattered was the connection she felt with Sebastian, the way he made her feel seen, understood, and valued. She had spent so many years trying to prove herself, trying to earn the love and respect that had been withheld from her. But now, she saw that she did not need anyone's approval to be happy, not even her parents. With renewed determination, Lisa stood up, her resolve solidifying with each passing moment. She would no longer live in the shadow of her parents' expectations. She would make her own choices, embrace her own happiness, and if that meant being with Sebastian, then so be it. She was in control of her life, and she would live it unapologetically, with love and passion. It was time to step out of the shadows and into the light of her own making. However, the more she thought about Sebastian, the more convinced she became that she was setting herself up for heartbreak. She was falling for a man who was still in love with a ghost, and she was terrified that she would never be able to live up to the memory of Alice.